Hey everyone, welcome back to the Errant Venture. I'm Steve,
I'm Adam.
and we were talking this week. My wife and I, we are in the process of rewatching the Clone Wars cartoon, and I was talking to Adam about it during the week, and it was one of those moments where we had to go, "Hey, you know what? This would be a good conversation for the podcast." And that topic was: Is the Clone Wars really a kids show,
Yeah,
or is
and that
it, or is it
okay.
just an adult show in disguise?
Yeah, and that really is a good topic there. Um, because I mean, it really, when you get into the later seasons, really gets dark.
Well,
It really gets dark.
it starts off pretty dark, and
I kind of feel it's a little bit lighter in the beginning compared to the rest of it.
well, in the beginning, they're still trying to find their mojo. If you
Hmm.
remember when the Clone Wars first came out, and when I say Clone Wars, it started off with that movie, and then it went into
Yeah.
the series, and a lot of people are like, "Who is this girl, and why don't I like her?" Like Ahsoka was not popular when she came out. There were death threats over her existence because they did not want people that did not want her in there,
Mm.
and it's just crazy how that changed at the end. She's one of the most loved Star Wars
Yeah,
characters,
she is.
but
So much so that, she got her own series.
exactly.
And when she showed up in Rebels, I mean, everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's Ahsoka! Yeah, woo!"
That was huge, especially with the same voice actor. But
Yes.
but if you think about it now, like as we're rewatching, and we're only through, we might be in the beginning parts of season 3,
Okay.
but in season 2, there is the second battle of Geonosis, and Kiadi sends clone troopers with flamethrowers after the Geonosians
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
just melts them. Like this show, of any show I've ever watched, has more characters that have names die per episode.
Yeah.
I have
Um.
I've never seen so much death in a show, real or cartoon, live action or
Yeah.
cartoon.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. It does get pretty gruesome with the deaths. Um. I kind of think that like they started off trying to make a kids more of a kids show and realized very quickly that it's hard to make a kid show about war.
Exactly. And not just about war, but you literally have, ancient, wizard dudes running around with glowing swords that can't
Yeah.
be stopped except for by another glowing sword.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like how many times do you just see like a random helmet fall off a body going, is it like Jango Fett where the head goes flying this way and the helmet goes that way? Like, is it still in there? There's a lot of decapitation in this show.
Yeah. And I mean, well, I don't understand how Django's head goes one way, but that's besides the point. No, it really, I mean,
Well,
hello,
they had to do something because
the
when
head
Boba,
is in there.
well, they had to do something because also when you see Boba just holding the helmet, you would just see the severed head plop right out of it.
I was waiting for that.
It would have been
I
great,
was waiting for that head to go boom. You know?
like a wet squishy sound as it hits the ground.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be. But I mean, as far as the Clone Wars show goes, um, I really, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it starts off trying to be a kids show, and I think it also had to do with the fact that they kind of looked at what the demographic was that was actually watching it, and it wasn't. Granted, there were good number of kids, obviously, but I think they kind of realized that most of it was like the adults,
It's
and I
really
think they
hard
kind
for
of figured they can go a little bit more hardcore.
it's really hard for a show like Star Wars to just play to its target audience. And when I say that, they try to make even kid shows like there's Little Jedi or Kid Jedi. It's about like little kids. Takes place a couple hundred years before the Phantom Menace. The only character you know that's in it
Yeah,
is the only character you know that's in it is Yoda,
yeah,
and but adults watch that too because it's always like, what tidbit from this is going to be canon somewhere else, or when will this be referenced? Especially with current shows like The Acolyte going back in time, to the eras that we don't have any content for.
Right.
So you have adults watching that and hating on what is meant for kids under 10.
Yeah. I mean, they did actually, they did do a kids show, and it was like back in the 90s, the Droids,
Yes.
and that was a kids show. Um, and yeah, I mean, they do have the young Jedi show thing, which really is
It,
geared for kids.
and that's what it's
Uh,
called. It's called Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures.
okay, okay.
Yeah, I had to look that up. Like, and my wife and I watched a few episodes of it. They're short episodes. They're small things.
Yeah,
It was more just like we're in one of those lulls between Star Wars releases, but that's there. And it's kind of like, what else are we gonna watch?
right. I've never actually. I think I saw clips of it,
it
and kind of went, "What is this?"
it
But
it's there.
yeah,
You gotta watch it for what it is. It's not meant for me.
right. Exactly, exactly.
And that's what
Um,
people got to understand. Like Star Wars is supposed to be for everyone, but just getting back to the Clone Wars and just how much like there's murders. Like forget about the war part of it, but just think of what happens around the war. You have senators killing senators,
yeah.
stabbing them, poisoning
Mhm.
them.
Mhm.
Just all of these like dark, dark stories. And I believe the show is still rated PG.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising given today's rating system, which ironically enough, I said today's rating system, but it actually came about in oh
Well,
what was
so,
it?
so,
Like in the 80s.
so
Um,
So it
uh,
has, and
and I really forgot what I know the movie that caused the PG-13 rating, and it's on the tip of my tongue, but it's not coming out.
well, I know they almost made a New Hope PG-13 because it had when Obi-Wan cuts off the arm in the cantina, and you see the blood that comes from it. That was borderline. But the thing is, as these movies, whatever it's rated.
Actually, no, that's not true.
Oh, one second.
That
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's not true. Because PG-13 did not exist in 1977.
But
It
it might.
it came about in the mid 80s.
But whenever they re-release like an episode of something, they have I think they have the opportunity to change or update that, and that
Yeah, so
movies.
probably during one of the re-releases that's been out. Yeah, I
But
can
that's
see that.
one. But one of the things, and I think it's just like rules with cars. If you buy a car from 1980, that car will always have to meet by 1980 standards.
Mm.
Versus and same thing with movies. Like if something came out in 1980, that's the rating it's got. Now look at things like Blazing Saddles and a lot of Mel Brooks stuff. Like if they're
Hmm.
not rated R back then, like they would be now.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the content, like you hear about Spaceballs 2 has been in the news lately, like that it might be happening. Personally, I don't think it's going to, and I won't believe it until I see it. But
Hmm.
uh, but it would have to be at least rated R at this point for it to be successful as a Mel Brooks movie, as a
Yeah.
follow up to what it was, and you're still targeting that
All right. This is.
aging Star Wars, clientele,
Yeah.
and when we watch stuff on like Clone Wars, like this is RPG. Clone Wars RPG. There's decapitation, there's stabbings, there's murders, and it goes through the entire series. And as the series did
Ah.
mature,
Okay.
what's
Sorry.
that? Did you find it?
I did find it.
What
Yes.
was it?
and I knew it too because I love that movie. Uh, it was actually the first PG-13 movie was Red Dawn, and that was back in 1984.
You're gonna hate me for
So
this.
before then,
Before I was
so before,
born.
yeah, I know, I know. I was 11 years old when that came out.
Sorry.
So before that movie though, um, yeah, there was no PG-13. There was no in between, and you can actually tell because there are some movies that were released prior to 1984, prior to Red Dawn, where you had curses and there was actually some nudity as well. Um, there was a movie that Chevy Chase did back in late 70s, early 80s. And it was Chevy Chase, Billy Bard, and Carrie Fisher. The movie was called Under the Rainbow.
I'll say I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and the premise is that Chevy Chase is the casting director, and I think he might have been a producer of it. And it's like they're making The Wizard of Oz, so he's in charge of getting the dwarves, the little people, and he's like trying to corral
You gotta
them
be
and
PC, man. You gotta be PC.
well, that's what they were called back then, the little people. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so in that movie, which is a funny movie, I love that movie, I really do. I haven't watched it in a while. I might need to find that and put that in. But in the movie, there's at the end, there's like a chase scene, and they actually go through the women's locker room. So you see naked women as they're running by. And I don't mean like, the upper half. I
You
mean it was like
you know everyone.
full.
You know everyone who's like watching or listening is just pulling out their phones right now and googling.
Yes. And that's perfectly fine. But yeah, it was like full on nudity. That I
So,
not gonna lie, as a kid, that was one of the reasons I loved the movie. But anyways,
so,
yeah. So
so I'm actually over
with the
here.
with the Clone War, yeah. Go ahead.
I'm actually over here. Like I've been trying to Google the most gruesome clone deaths, and there's YouTube video after YouTube video after YouTube video of just the worst deaths that take place in the Clone Wars and the
Yeah,
saddest deaths, and just like it's crazy. Like you see like this.
and there was a lot.
Oh well, you see, and what's funny is you see a lot of like memes or a lot of things on Facebook like, "What was your first death?" And it's like, or that introduced you to death. Was it Mufasa? Was it the Littlefoot's mom? Was it Bambi? Like for a lot of the kids now, it's none of those. It's Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. Yeah,
Like like
I know.
like that's insane to think that what I still think of as some of the best storytelling in Star Wars, not all of it, but a lot of it, uh,
Hmm.
is now what is some in some situations the first experience of death that in TV or cartoon that
Yeah.
kids are experiencing compared to me watching like Bambi or The Land Before Time as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's crazy to me.
I know it is. It is, and I mean, um, there were. It really is. There is death a lot in cartoons, and a lot of the ones that are geared for kids. Uh, for me, it was like Bambi was like the first one. You know, and then of course, later on when I was like 12, it was Optimus Prime from Transformers the movie. And like every character that I come to love in the first two seasons that they just killed off in like the first 30 minutes of the movie, not even. But no, I mean it was Clone Wars had I mean it was good storytelling, but it was very dark. There was a lot of death. There was a lot of, I don't want to say mature subject matter, but compared to some of the other children cartoons out there. Yeah. So, I mean, that alone just, it just screams that
Huh.
they might have started out trying to make it for kids, but it
It didn't last long.
it very quickly turned to adults.
Like there's a whole part going on during the second battle of Geonosis. Like I said, we just got past rewatching that, where you
Mm.
have Ahsoka, Anakin, and Mundi are keeping score of how many Geonosians they kill, as if it's a fun game, as if it's like, hey, who can kill the most of them, and then brag about it. And when Mundi wins, he's like, so what do I get? And it's the joke. They're laughing about it. It's
Yeah,
like, do you
yeah,
know how many living things you like? Killing droids. Okay, no, they're droids. I have my own theories about about droids, but you're not fighting droids so much in this. You're fighting
yeah.
living beings, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a game.
Well,
Like,
they got that from Lord of the Rings. Gimli and Legolas, they were
yeah.
keeping score of how many orcs they killed.
But let's be honest, aren't I thought orcs were technically dead already?
Ah, no, no.
Was it Urkai were dead elves or something like that?
Maybe I don't know.
It's been a while.
Christian would know.
I
Christian would know, but
like I've watched the movies, but I never got into the lore of the rings.
I've read the books. I've read the books, the novels, and I saw the movies, and that was about it.
You did more than I did.
Yeah, I didn't never went into too much detail, even with Star Wars, because we were actually talking about that earlier. Um,
There's,
because there's stuff that's in the role-playing game that people dismiss, and yet everything that's in the like encyclopedias and um, like he put it like coffee table books, you know, that have a lot of information. People just they automatically accept that. Um,
well, it goes back.
I don't even read all of those. So like there's so much that I don't know.
Well, it goes back to something that we have repeated again and again on this channel, and that is that there's just too much Star Wars. And it's not saying like I can deal with, oh, there's always new TV shows coming out, there's always new movies coming out. But when you add in the books, when you add in the legends, when you add in, the EU, when you add in the
Yeah.
encyclopedias that are touching on something that is such a minor aspect or something that was just like, a footnote and a footnote and a footnote, it's
Hmm.
it's too much. And I'm sure there's people out there that know every little thing, and God bless them that they are more of a geek than I am.
Yeah.
But I
Well, I mean, to that point, I mean, even in the Darth Vader comic book, in the first run, um, they actually established like Darth Vader has no lungs.
yeah. Well, they got all like,
So
but
it's
that
like,
makes but that makes
but
sense. He got
that is
torched.
but that's new. That's new. Before it was just he had badly damaged lungs, and in the books, especially Shadows of the Empire, um, there is a little segment where he's trying to use the Force to heal his lungs, but his lungs are still there. So there really is, and another point to that also is the new show Acolyte. Now I don't know if you've been watching it.
I've only watched the first two episodes. I haven't gotten a chance to watch the third one.
So the
So
third one is very divisive.
that's what I've heard.
There's
That's what I've read, but I'm trying. No
a lot
spoilers.
of people really don't like it. Um,
Well, it's Star
but
Wars.
it is.
You're never gonna have something that a lot of people don't like.
Oh yeah, I know. But not. I'm not gonna spoil anything. But the one I will say uh, is that it goes to our point of so much stuff. Nobody's really keeping track of it because in episode 3, like they totally just kind of rewrite canon. They contradict what was already established.
Um,
So,
and that's been a lot as they've been expanding everything. And you know, it's hard to find people who want to make a Star Wars show, and I might be wrong. I don't have anything to do with it. I'm just a nerd over here who really likes Star Wars and has a podcast. But
Yeah,
but a lot of people, I think, just want to write a Star Wars show just to say that they did something for Star Wars, that they contributed to Star Wars, and that they,
yeah,
they were a part of it. But they don't have the love that, a Filoni has, a Lucas has. They don't have that love. They don't. All they want to do is make their mark, because
yeah,
Star Wars has the power to either, strap a rocket to your back or put you in a pit.
yeah.
And
And that's and it's really it's not just Star Wars where you see this problem. I mean, we can take Doctor Who, okay? When Capaldi was leaving and we found out we were getting a woman doctor, people were coming out of the woodworks and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is great. I love the fact that we got a woman doctor and all this is about time." And then it's like, "Oh, well, okay, well, what do you think, of, this character or something?" I was like, "Oh, well, I never watched the show." Well, why are you commenting?
I'm not gonna
And it's the
lie.
same thing here.
I've never watched this show, but I do want to share something with you. Let me share my
Yeah.
screen real quick
Well,
because
before you do that,
all right.
but this is going, to the whole thing that, we have so many people who are writing or producing or doing something for Star Wars because they want to make their mark, they want to get recognized, they also want to grab that paycheck, but they don't have. It's not the same from people who actually are fans.
No, I gotcha. And just returning to our topic, and where it does come in good, because that's exactly the thing that you run into with with Ray. People, the girl who played Ray. I think she did a good job. I think the part sucked, and I think the storyline she was in sucked. I
Yeah,
don't think she's a bad actress. In fact, I still think The Force Awakens was a good movie. It was just
me too.
it was the stuff that came after that that really didn't make sense.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
curious. I'm glad that she's at least willing to give Star Wars another shot, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people wouldn't. But no,
Yeah.
it was the same thing with Ahsoka when she first came up in Clone Wars. No one wanted to see her, but
And that's the thing. It's like Ahsoka started out being a hated character. Like there were death threats because of Ahsoka, and by the end of it, she was like one of their favorite characters. But I do have to say one thing though. Because we were talking about the continuity and everything, and that nobody's checking it. Um, I would happily volunteer to have that job. I will have no problems looking through everything, watching everything, and trying to keep track of continuity.
I'm
Just saying, Disney, I am available. I'll be more than happy to have that job and just go through the continuity.
just give you
Sorry, I just wanted to put that out there,
just
offering my services.
provide you with like a free Imperial uniform for your for your efforts.
Exactly. I don't ask much. I don't ask much. A little bit of pay, you know. But
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so I found this website, and this is parents and kids reviewing Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And
Okay.
so it's saying here, so this is what the parents are saying. How old this show is for. So this person, uh,
13 and over, I saw.
13 over here, it looks like the average is 11 plus. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I've watched several episodes, and with my 7-year-old, and was sorry I did. It was great. It's a great Star Wars show, but many episodes have concepts that aren't appropriate for younger kids. One example is season 3, episode 13, Monster, about the creation of Savage Press, and
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
a witch is running around, and the winner offers himself in exchange for his brother's life. But And it's funny because I wasn't even thinking about that episode where I'm going, wow, this show, but that's so true. It's so
Yes.
true. Like the fact that you have like witches making all these spells, and if you think about the whole reason why Savage was even created was to kill Dooku.
Yeah.
Like,
And and you want to talk about mature themes, take a look at the Witches of Dathomir. You know, there was two villages. There was the witches' village, and then there was that other village where, Darth Maul came from, where they have nothing but men there. And what is their job? Their job is to be a booty call.
pretty much.
That's their job. And that's a pretty mature theme for a kids show. I mean, that is not like kids, especially, if you're going to have a target audience of, younger than 11, they still think girls have cooties.
This is great. 15 and up. 15 of the show's great backstory, however, is not for children. Scenes with provocative dancers and bars is just one example. Cold-blooded
Yeah,
execution
cold-blooded execution.
is another common matter, as well as terrorists who commit suicide by jumping off a roof. The show is great, as I said before. It's just not for viewers as young as it has been rated for. Now,
Yep.
what's even more fun about this is, where was I scrolled by before? 8 plus, 11 plus, but I thought I saw one that said 6 plus, and like that this is amusing. But now what we can
Six
do is,
plus. I don't know what episodes they were watching.
but here's the fun part now, because now we can see what the kids say.
I noticed more kids actually responded.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. Kids on the internet, they have time. Uh,
Yeah.
10 plus, 9 plus. Yeah, and what's funny is, like,
Best show ever.
I'm half tempted to see like some of these younger ages being written by kids of that younger age.
Hmm.
but but yeah, there's over 200 of these, like 12 plus, 13 plus. Like, this is great. I want to see what's there. They say 8 plus. That's the website saying it. Some
Well, I
decent.
guess they average it out.
I don't know. This is from this person, Anne Louise Bannon. She's a Common Sense
Mm.
Media reviewer. 8 plus. Some decent messages wrapped up in the Force.
Mm. And they're even messing that up too.
Yeah. So,
Like they're messing up the entire concept of the Force. Um, so there was
well,
an
well,
article
depending upon
that showed
well, depending
that
upon
showed.
which side you're on, a lot of people are still saying that Lucas himself messed up what the Force was when he came
Mm,
out with the Phantom Menace.
true, but Kathleen Kennedy is messing it up even further because there's um, so there's rumors that in the show Acolyte, one of the messages is that they're gonna say that the Force is actually female, like the entire Force is female,
Uh,
and that it's geared more towards women. Women have more affinity for the Force.
I'm I do my best to stay out of politics. I do my best to stay out of all of, that type of stuff. And I'm going to continue to rise above the hate and just not,
Yeah.
not dwell on that. At the end of the day, I am open to change. I'm open-minded when it comes to Star Wars because there's so much and there's so many people out there who have a part in it, and it's going to be ever growing. It's going to be going on forever. Star Wars will not know an end. And at the end of the day, you can't keep expanding without doing some change to it. And I'm open to it. All I care about is good storytelling. If you want to make a
Mm-hmm.
change, just make it make sense. And if you want to
Uh,
make
mm,
if you want to make a change, just tell the story and explain it clearly. Like, like one
Yeah.
of my biggest issues with the Phantom Menace, and now we're going back to the father. Um, but one of my worst parts of it, you have a basic understanding, not even like a very limited understanding of the Force coming out of the original trilogy, and then but you learn a little bit, but then when you find out it's like, oh, it's these little bugs in your blood, it's kind of like, well, that sucks.
It's disappointing
Yeah,
is the word I want to use.
and
But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head right there. I feel the same way. For me, you know, above everything else, give me a good story. Entertain me. I don't want to think too much. I shouldn't have to think too much.
I'm good at
That's not
that.
what this is for me. I can't, no. For me, I don't need to think too much. Okay? If I wanted to think, I would be reading Shakespeare. I don't want to do that. I'm sitting here reading a comic or, watching a show or watching a movie. I want to be entertained. I want a good story. If you want to make changes, give me a good story, have it make sense.
Uh,
And I'm sorry, but, you know, you can't just be like, well, that
yeah.
and then call people crying man babies when we're like, well, wait a minute, hold on, you know? Um, Yeah, yeah, that, right on the head. Yeah,
But
give me a good story. Have it
uh,
make sense.
and that's one of the things that I feel like the Clone Wars did extremely well, and it's also why they had to, I'll call it, flex their rating. Like
Mm.
they took that to the extreme of what they could have, and I feel like for the storytelling that they wanted, for the goal they had in mind, and like you said earlier, like how many stories about war can you do for kids? Like you can't. And this went on for 7 seasons. Some of those seasons have 20 something episodes. Now there was a couple hundred episodes of this show.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
at some point you do need to get into those more adult topics. But not only that, this show is where you really start to see Anakin's turning and Anakin getting darker and doing
And
things.
that was the other thing is that and we talked about this before. One of the things that the show did great, they did a really great job with, was giving us more show or not showing us more of a reason why Anakin turned
Yes,
besides just, "Ooh, I want to save my wife."
there was
I
a
wonder if
lot.
this is leaking. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, that,
Sorry, I picked up my drink to drink it, and there's like wet on the table here, and I'm like, oh wait, is that soda or is that just condensation? So,
condensation. But
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 yeah,
yeah, and that's part of the that's one of the things that we like about it. It gave more. My wife says it all the time when we watch this. I wish that how Anakin is portrayed in the Clone Wars is how he was portrayed in the movies, because in the movies he's just a whiny guy, and in the show
he
he
is.
is just a badass, and it's great to watch him. And even when they brought him back, brought Hayden Christensen back, and for Ahsoka, like that was cool. That was cool. No, that that
Even when they brought him back for the flashback scene, because he was in it. He was in Obi-Wan. In the Darth Vader
yeah.
suit. But
That's
even when they did,
yeah, I meant that one too.
yeah, yeah, even when they did the flashbacks, they showed more of and just that one sparring session, said a lot.
And part of that could have been, um, you know, because here you have two different ideas for how Anakin should be. You had
Mm-hmm.
Anakin in live action, when Hayden Christensen was doing it back in the early 2000s, and then you had someone else's interpretation of what Anakin should be in the Clone Wars, and you're seeing the two of them, and it's like, you know, which do people like more? People
Right.
like Anakin in the Clone Wars better, and now as Hayden Christensen has gotten older and more mature, better at acting, and people have forgiven how terrible he was in the first, in 2 and 3, he's trying to be more like Anakin from the Clone Wars. Case in point, he's wearing his armor.
Yeah.
He's dressed like Anakin from the Clone
Yeah.
Wars, which he never dressed like during the movies.
And to piggyback, well, neither did Obi-Wan either. And to piggyback what we were saying before about, what we want, which is good story and, changes that make sense. Um, I don't, and you kind of said a little bit about it that you don't blame the actors, and neither do I. I do not blame the actors. If I feel that the actor phoned it in,
There's one actor
yeah,
I blame.
I'll blame I'll be like, yeah, it's your fault. But a lot of times I don't blame the actor. I blame the director. I blame the studio.
The the guy who played the Grand Inquisitor in Obi-Wan, I blame
Mm,
him for sucking because he he had rebels. He had parts to research to understand how his character was. These were things that were done in lore. These are things that, people, this is the stuff that made the character something that people cared about. And he
yeah.
chose to not watch it. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Yeah, I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to watch it. But you're playing an established character. You
Yes.
you have to go along with that. It's not like you're playing. Oh, I'm the person's evil twin. No, you're playing this person. You have to go along with. You have to talk like that person. You have to walk like that person. You have to act
Yeah.
like that person.
And as we talked about before, that was a for me that was a huge problem with the Last Jedi. You know, is that Ryan Johnson did not want to go and do his research. He wanted to do his own thing, and that's fine. But you are using established characters,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to do your research. You got to stay true to those characters, and he didn't. Um, and that's something that's really important, is staying true to the source material and everything that came before, and that's you know yeah.
Well, so here's a thought for you, and I know we keep pulling away from the subject, and this is probably going to pull us even further away from it. But one of the big things that people do, and it's capitalizing what you just said, is they go, man, never would have expected Luke to be like what he was in the Last Jedi. No one would have wanted to see the fall of Luke Skywalker, and how he turned into this.
Neither did Mark Hamill.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. A lot of people are still like, we need more Luke. We need more Luke. We want to know what happened, throughout time. But do we really, when we know what the end result is? All you like, if unless someone's really gonna find a way to retract how he was in that movie, it means you're slowly gonna see him turn into that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't really want to see it. I for one, I love Luke, but there's other stories that I want to know about. I keep, apparently, what I'm loving right now is the Clone Wars has continued. And regardless of how different people view it, I still view Bad Batch as seasons 8, 9, and 10 of the Clone Wars.
Right.
Especially when you
Yeah.
have Rex and coming back into it, and the fact that the Bad Batch were in season 7, to me it's a continuation. And there's rumors, and I really hope it happens because there's still so much more to say, that we're going to get our Clone Rebellion, and that the Clone Wars is going to
Mm-hmm.
continue on, and it's going to be even more rated PG content of
Yes.
Clone Wars, and that's another thing we haven't even got into. Like, think of the stuff that happened in the Bad Batch that's so also considered PG.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's gonna be
Yeah.
another series.
I mean, you had one of the characters literally fall to their death.
I'm sure there was more than just one of them.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
just
Like
I just
like
know
You
that
had
was.
Scorch get lit up by 10 shots. You had
Mm-hmm.
you had people that you literally had testing on humans.
Yeah.
I That's insane.
Yes.
And that's what kids might be watching as their first entrance to it. And I still love you still have people out there too who are like, oh, I'm not gonna Star Wars isn't Star Wars unless it's on the big screen. It's like, no, no, no.
No,
There
no,
are
it's
people
still
who are
Star Wars.
like that, but like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like I watched that podcast you sent me with the guys at the bar uh
Oh yes, yeah, guys,
I,
guys at bars.
and I enjoyed hearing the one guy's like, yeah, I haven't watched any of the cartoons, and another guy's like, well, you gotta watch some of the cartoons. Rebels and Clone Wars are some of the best storytelling in Star Wars. And hearing that, on there, it's not just coming from me. And these are guys who are like, they're all older than me. I love hearing that. Like I've been watching the
Yeah,
Clone Wars since the 5 minute episodes. But I've been watching like this, the actual Clone Wars on what is considered canon since it came out in 2008, and that was what a long time ago, like 14 years ago, 16 years ago. I'm doing bad at
2008 is
16
16.
years ago. So
Yes,
I was
I know that very well because that's the year Michaela was born. So
boom. Uh,
I know it.
so I've been watching this show for a while, and now that you know I watched the first 6 seasons, first 5 seasons of it. I watched it
Mm-hmm.
when Netflix brought it back for season 6. I watched it when Disney brought it back for season 7. I've watched Bad Batch 1, 2, and 3. I've watched all 4 seasons of The Rebels. The cartoons are some of the best storytelling that Star Wars has.
Yeah,
Far better than the holiday special. And
I don't. Listen, I don't know. I might have to disagree with you on that. Wookiee Life Day. Leia breaking into song. I
uh,
mean, I don't know. That's quality stuff. You can't mess with that.
so just because we're growing a little long in the tooth, so I'm going to throw the question out to you.
Okay.
And what we'll do is let's stick to the original Clone Wars. So we're gonna stick with the little movie that they made, seasons 1 through 5. So before Netflix made season 6 and before Disney took on season 7, what is the age category or not age category? What age plus do you think this show should be for?
Um, 11. You're pushing it. I think.
In which direction? Too old? Too young?
I would say too young. I would say too young. Um, I would say if anything, we're looking at at the very least, at the youngest, like 12,
Okay.
12 and older.
So I was at that 11 mark. And the only reason why I say that is because I also remember being a kid, and I remember when I was a kid and when I was 11, I was running to get home from school before my parents so I could watch The Simpsons,
Hmm.
and so and I turned
Yeah.
out pretty okay.
You want to talk about a show that's not for kids. There you go. There's one. I
Exactly.
mean, listen, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so, you know, you want to talk about things being way different and still growing up perfectly fine, How you doing? Textbook.
I'm gonna go with 11. I think 11's a good age. You're in the double digits. You're over 10.
Yeah,
If you're Jewish, you're almost coming of a man,
that's
or
true.
woman. You're starting your Torah studies, to
Yeah.
get there. But I think at that point, you've done a little bit of life. At that point, you should be beyond, your first death in TV or death in cartoons, especially nowadays with just how accessible everything is on social media, on the
Mm-hmm.
internet, on Netflix, on all streaming services. So I think 11 is probably the right age for it, at least in my book.
Okay.
And like I really hope these series continues. I love the cartoons. I love that they do more than what you would expect humans to be able to do in live action, and
Mm-hmm.
the storytelling is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, the stories are good. Um, yeah. I forgot what I was gonna say something and I just totally lost it.
Hey,
But
happens to the best of us, but
more so when you get to be older.
yeah, we're getting there, or
Mm.
we'll be there. Hey, I got one more year. I'm already considering myself in my midlife area. So, I got one more year. I'm 40, so I'm slowly I'm getting closer as much as I'm trying to run the opposite
40
direction.
is 40 is the new 30.
I'll tell myself that later when my back is bothering me. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you guys think the right age for watching the Clone Wars, not just the movie, but the whole series. And we'll
Yeah.
throw the Bad Batch in there because why not? Uh,
And feel free to comment on some of the other off-topic things that we were talking about. It got kind of be, if we had to make a title, it would just be a rant. Just a rant, because we
well,
do tend to do that. But thanks for watching. Like us on all the social media, follow us,
yeah,
all of that.
and not just that, like comment down below if you guys have topics you want us to talk about. Like we're always trying to come up with new things that think other people might want to hear about. We don't want to talk about too much of what's current in Star Wars. We want to talk about the Star Wars we know and love, and that's from last year, not from now. So,
Yeah.
so all right, everyone, have a good
All
one.
right.
Be safe, Adam.
All right. May the force be with you. I'm Fuzzy.
I'm Steve.
Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.